Hey YouTube. Hey Michael. I got your message, this little video you sent me. Touch sensitive news. Deborah did a good article on you. The thing is if it's all based on a lie, it's a hollow victory, dude. I mean, what you're seeing on those maps is not HARP. Nothing's changed. Absolutely nothing. You sent all kinds of PDFs over to the Realist News. None of it proves that you can see images of HARP on weather radar. None of it. And we're going to go over it again just to make sure you understand. I've actually got some new information that really debunks you, and we'll get over that later. So here we go.
So that brings me to the evidence. Okay, it's called geometric modulation, a more effective method of steerable ELF/VLF wave generation with continuous HF heating of the lower ionosphere. And it goes on to talk about ELF and VLF radio waves. They're difficult to generate with practical antenna. They're very long waves. ELF waves have been successfully generated via amplitude modulated AM HF frequencies, heating of the lower ionosphere. Okay? And now go through and read this. This is great. It's a great read for anybody who wants to figure out what these HARP rings are.
We already know what they are, Michael. They are glitches on a map. That's all they are. This proves nothing.
Okay, and now here's how they're doing it. They're using stations. They're using either geomagnetic south or geomagnetic north. And they're using two stations to send and receive HF frequency, which causes ELF and VLF.
And if you continued to read, it would say the observed response of the amplitude modulation, the north-south line sweep, and the circle sweep measured in the indicated 9 frequencies. And those frequencies are between 1 kilohertz and 6.25 kilohertz. NexRad radar can only see its operating frequency, which is 3 gigahertz, which is the opposite end of the radio spectrum from ELF and VLF. Again, Michael, you cannot see this from your weather radar map. Okay, back to more of your pseudoscience evidence.
It does. Here's HARP, and look, they even have a diagram of HARP and how it broadcasts up in a cone, which is producing a ring in the ionosphere. Okay, there's the ring. There's the radar ring. It's right there.
And you wonder why I call it pseudoscience, Michael. Okay, let's look at your little graph on the left of the little box that you said is HARP, the little indicator. It says 70 to 100 kilometers. How high up does the radar look? It looks as high as the troposphere, which is only about 15 kilometers. Here's the graph that'll show you that. So in other words, you can't get there from here. There's no way you can see the top of that cone from your weather map. So not only can NexRad not see ELF or VLF, it cannot see the little top of your little cone because it's so far up, it's way out of its range, dude. Again, you know, if you would just for once give me some real science, dude, I would like take my hat off to you. I would applaud you. I really would. But you're not trying to do science. All you're trying to do is validate your weather map, that you can see the rings and the rings are HARP. It's never going to happen, Michael. You got to let it go, brother. I'm telling you.
And this is a great read. I suggest anybody who's a skeptic of radar rings, read this.
As you can tell, I did read it, and I debunked it. I think you should read these things a little bit more in depth as well before you submit it as proof. I mean, you're making yourself look silly, brother.
And I'm not done showing you documents. Let's go and look at a couple more, okay? Here is the Demeter observations of ELF waves injected with HARP HF transmitter. Now the Demeter is a satellite, and it's satellite observations of extremely low frequency waves injected with HARP HF transmitter. So they're using a high frequency transmitter to inject extremely low frequency waves. And just read it. Modulated HF heating of the Royal Electrojet is used to inject ELF signals into the magnetosphere that are observed on the low-altitude Demeter spacecraft. The high-frequency heater is a component of the High-Frequency Active Aurora Research Project, HARP, facility in Kokona, Alaska. Simultaneous observations of all 6 components of the ELF electromagnetic fields on the Demeter spacecraft are used to estimate the total ELF power radiated downward into the Earth ionosphere waveguide. Radiating down in a cone, producing a ring.
Whoa, wait. Didn't you say that it broadcasts up in a cone? Does it radiate down in a cone or does it broadcast up in a cone? Well, let's check.
And how it broadcasts up in a cone.
Dude, do you even know how funny this is? I'm telling you, you got a really good sense of humor, man. No sense for science, but a real good sense of humor.
Simultaneous observations of all 6 components of the ELF electromagnetic fields on the Demeter spacecraft are used to estimate the total ELF power radiated downward into the Earth ionosphere waveguide. Radiating down in a cone.
Michael, you're making stuff up again. It says into the ionosphere waveguide, not into a cone. And ionosphere, Michael, you can't see that from your weather map, right? Right.
It's a new discovery, and I understand a lot of people don't want to accept it. Well, here are the documents to prove it. Read them, please. People, please read them.
I have read them, Michael, and I've debunked them. It seems to me that you're trying to create a conspiracy with these rings. I mean, isn't that what the powers that be do? They create conspiracies and they come up with the plan to make you feel safer or make you feel better about it or keep you informed. And isn't that what they do? I hope that's not what you're doing, brother. Well, if you didn't like the last part, you're really not going to like this part. All the talk of ELF and VLF, that's all I really wanted to prove is you couldn't see that with that weather map. None of that has anything to do with how HAARP affects the weather. Okay, now according to Eastland, the man who wrote the patent, the electron cyclotron resonance heating is created by the high frequency radio waves. It is projected in a specific region of the ionosphere. Now, since it's the cyclotron, it's going to excite the electrons, charge the electrons. So the ECR is like a mirrored force aimed upwards, so that the atmosphere above it gets converted to plasma. Those charged electrons get pushed up, creating room for new electrons to come in, convert that to new plasma, pushing up charged electrons again. Now, as it moves those particles horizontally to fill in the space that it just created, because nature abhors a vacuum, it's so large a scale, it's on the order of how the winds move in the stratosphere equal to the region that it's being heated. And that's pretty much how the wind works on Earth, too. The sun radiates down, heats up the ground, which heats up the air. When the air gets hot, it rises, and as it rises, it creates a sort of vacuum that sweeps in the cooler air, and that is wind. That's how wind is created. And now to your predictions. There's no doubt that when you predict severe weather 1 to 2 days in advance, you're usually right. And also, so is every National Weather Service meteorologist in the world, within that same 24 to 48 hour window. Are you surprised? You shouldn't be. Even Pierce Corbin, who's the meteorologist, astrophysicist that you and I both know, he stated on more than one occasion that just about anybody can be accurate a day or two before a weather event. So that's what you're doing, except for the sensationalizing with rings and squares. Well, you're just a weatherman. Okay, remember this, Michael? I'll give you a chance to read it. Okay, Holes in the Heavens was a movie in '95, a DVD that Nick was a guest spot on. He's not writing a book about the rings. That was a total lie. You made a promise to us. You said that you would quit talking about the rings if you've been debunked and proved wrong. I've proven you wrong. Let's stop the rings. If you force me to, I'll come back and debunk your scalar waves and all the other stuff you keep attributing to HAARP. Here's a couple more that I'm going to debunk right off the bat.
Ring phenomenon. And they make the claim that a lot of these radar returns that we're seeing, these rings, emanate from airports and radar stations. Well, this basically just shoots a hole in everything that they're talking about, saying that it doesn't control weather. Here's the West Texas Weather Modification Association, the WTWMA website, and they clearly have a giant picture of an X-band NEXRAD radar station.
Okay, Michael, look. There are enough conspiracies. We don't need you to make new ones, brother. Just because they have a radar site doesn't mean it's sinister. They do in fact use that to track the clouds that they see. And if you look at the return, it's a really cheap one. It's nothing like the National Weather Service ones. Cloud seeding is not a bad thing, Michael. They need rain. The last 10 years, they're so far behind. Livestock are dying. Crops can't grow. Not everybody can afford irrigation, which, the rich farmers can do this. The people that don't have a lot of money can't, and it's their livelihood. So cloud seeding is weather manipulation, yeah, but it's not chemtrails. It's not HARP. Nothing sinister about it, okay? Stop spreading these kind of nasty rumors about it.
And I've got a great nugget of information here for you. This is Australian Rain Corporation, based out of Australia. And I just have to read this first series of paragraphs here to you, and I'm going to put the link down below, and you have to go read it.
Again, Mike, typical of you, you're going to read the first couple of sentences from the first few paragraphs, then go right to the pictures and point and say, this is HARP. Dude, this is not HARP.
It has been experimentally and theoretically verified that introducing electrically charged droplets into naturally occurring cloud will affect the collision probabilities and hence the rate of droplet coalescence to produce raindrops. And depending on the nature of the cloud and the concentration of charged droplets, results in an increased raindrop growth. This forms the basis of their model. And now step one. Initially, negative ions are generated from a high voltage corona discharge wire array. What is that? That's HARP.
No, it's not HARP. I wish you would get your sciences straight, Michael. High frequency is HARP. High voltage is ionization.
Or a HARP-type facility. 2. The ions become attached to particles in the atmosphere, especially soluble particles, which later act as cloud content. 3. The ions are conveyed to the higher atmosphere by wind, atmospheric convection, and turbulence.
And since when does HARP rely on wind to get its particles in the atmosphere? Remember, they have 1 billion watts of power. They don't need wind. Dude, this is just a simple seeding operation. They use charged particles and wind to get it up into the clouds instead of flying above it with a plane and dropping it indirectly. That's all it is. Again, Michael, this is you. You mix and match scientific principles and processes, and everything points to HARP. Radar stations are not storm magnets. If they were, it would surround it like a metal surrounds a magnet. Metal filings surround a magnet. Most of the time, it's that line, the front of the storm, grazes it on the edge, or it goes right over it, but the line still remains the line. They're not magnets, dude. It just so happens that they go at it. There's 200 of them. What do you expect? Weather mitigation. Look up the word mitigation. I thought you went to college. What does mitigation mean? It means to lessen. Like fog in an airport, mitigate the fog, right? Lessen the fog, it to be a good thing. Mitigate the hail. Remember that one you read? To lessen hail, hail destroys a lot of properties. Again, a good thing. This last bit's for your groupies. I don't care about YouTube. I don't care about being famous on YouTube. That's not famous. Dude, I owned one of the busiest nightclubs in my hometown. I bought it when I was 28 years old. I had top name rock and roll bands every weekend. That's fame. God, I miss that place. This is cyberspace. This is nothing. If you think this is all that, brother, you better get outside, man. Get some sun in your face. Okay, Michael, I'm open for discussion, but your fantasy stuff stays off the table. No rings, none of that stuff that you're making up, none of the stuff that Ginny makes up, okay? Let's stick to the facts. Maybe we could talk. See you later, YouTube.